Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, officers, welcome along. I declare this meeting open. Welcome to 2018. I hope everybody had a good break and raring to go, because it's going to be a great year for Bunnery. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest? Thank you. We're on to 7.1, confirmation of the previous minutes, 12th of December last year. Councillor Cook moves, seconded. Councillor Steele, all in favour. It's carried unanimously, thank you. 7.12, minutes of the annual electors meeting. Thank you very much, Councillor Cook. Councillor Steele, all in favour. That's carried unanimously, thank you. We also have the various council committee recommendations there. Someone move all that, please. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Steele, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Do you have any petitions, councillors? We have requests for presentations tonight from Mr Bernard Bischoff regarding 10.2.2. Those who approve that, please indicate. That's approved. And Mr Wren, President of Bunnery Basketball Association, on item 10.2.3. Those who approve, please indicate. Thank you. So, gentlemen, when I get to those items, I'll invite you up and you have 5 minutes presentation time. So, councillors, method of dealing with the agenda coming out so far is 10.1.1. 10.1.9, 10.2.2, 10.2.3. Are there any further items that you wish to discuss? Councillor Kelly?
Yes, Mr Mayor, may I take out 10.15, please?
Yep. Anyone else?
Can I just get confirmation that the waiving of fees, which is 10.43, don't wish to take it out, but I just confirm that it is not, doesn't require an absolute majority?
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Is that correct? Yep. Okay, Councillor McCleary.
I see the 10.4.1 is still in the agenda and the hard copy. That's been taken out as well, hasn't
It has, yeah. So I'm prepared to move the balance, please. Councillor Cook, Councillor McGuinness, all in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.11. Moving the executive recommendation.
I'd like to an alternate, which I have forwarded through.
Yeah, I'll deal with the committee recommendation first, Councillor Steele. Thank you for sending that through this afternoon. Committee recommendation, would the chairman like to move that? Councillor Brown, is there a seconder
That's okay.
to the committee recommendation? Councillor Cook. Councillor Brown.
Under the Policy Review Development Committee, we're looking at as far as the we have an ad hoc situation at the present time. We have 4 elected members and 1 representative. 4 elected members, but the intention was to have 1 representative, which would add to the skill set of the group, and that would enable us to have a more frank and more informed discussion as around each of the policies. And that Bunbury General Chamber of Commerce and Industry representative was to be selected by the Chamber of Commerce. And that's about it. Thank you.
Councillor Cook, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just very briefly, I'd just like to confirm my support for the recommendation to include the Chamber of Commerce in the number. The fact is that we elected members represent the whole community, but the Chamber represents the business sector, which of course allows development and growth within the city. I think it's excellent that we should bring in expertise on these committees. It happens with quite a number of committees. One of the most important ones, I think, is the Audit Committee, where we have 2 outsiders sitting on that committee. An important point to remember is that whilst the Policy Committee will make recommendations, they are only recommendations, and it's up to this chamber to confirm or refuse those recommendations. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Steele, you have an amendment you wanted to raise?
Thank you. So I would change 1 would keep the same, but 2 would be different, which is just removing the line about the Chamber of Commerce, and 3 would be direct the CEO to establish a recommended framework and terms of reference for a policy reference group with membership to be drawn from the community to be a representative of the following community sectors: business, industry, building and construction, community services, youth and sport, with a recommended framework and terms of reference to be returned to Council for decision in February.
Okay, so with this one, Councillor Steele, what I'll do is we'll deal with the committee recommendation. You vote against it or speak against it, and if that doesn't get up, then I'm happy to entertain your 3. So, is there a speaker again? Yes, Councillor Kelly, thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Before I start, can we take these separately, 1, 2 and 3, please?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I chaired this policy committee for a couple of years, and in this case I won't be supporting the addition of the Chamber of Commerce. This week it was reported that to include the Bunbury Geograph Chamber of Commerce and Industry to the committee was no different than what occurred in the Community Access Committee, International Relations Committee, or the Heritage Advisory Committee, amongst others. And I have to say that's not true. Those committees are set up with specific terms of reference to take carriage on one subject, with members who have a particular interest or expertise in that subject. Hence, we bring in people, particularly on two that I'm involved with, the Heritage Advisory Committee and the Community Access Committee, who are from that sector, solely for that sector, and in context of the committee they sit on, it is one issue. So they're set up with a specific terms of reference to take carriage on that one subject with members who have a particular interest or expertise in that subject. The Policy Committee exists to create policy for a range of issues across the business of local government and the City of Bunbury, and for all the ratepayers, and that's the job of elected members, the people here under 2.7 of the Act. If our policy committee is to have outside influence, then it must be open to all. And I've seen Councillor Steele's alternative for a reference group, and it's a good idea. We just cannot have one group come into our policy committee representing one part of Bunbury, and that is business and commerce, much as we appreciate the efforts they do or that they put in. So it's a policy, or it's a policy that shouldn't be supported, having one sector in on our policy committee that covers a whole gamut, a whole range of issues that are associated with good governance in the City of Bunbury. So whereas I do support one, I think for the sake of this particular item, that if we vote the whole lot down, Councillor Steele's alternative I've seen keeps one and then modifies 2 and 3. Excellent idea to have that particular reference group. So I ask councillors to vote in the negative for 1, 2 and 3, and then we can hear the alternative. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Speaker 4. Councillor Hayward.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. If we keep doing the same things we've always done, nothing's going to change. And one of the things that we want to do is build into the actual DNA of what we do. We want to have that community influence right in the very heart of what it is we do. And what this move does is gives an opportunity for, agreed, not all of the community, but the Chamber of Commerce do represent a large portion of our community in terms of business and the people that they employ and others. And the other thing, of course, is that the Chamber of Commerce are about running an enterprise, and that's what the City of Bunbury is. It's effectively the biggest enterprise in our city. And they do bring a level of expertise that will certainly help us and certainly help build into what we do more of that community focus. I don't think we have anything to fear at all from this move. I think that the committee should be congratulated for thinking outside the box and coming up with something that's new. I think that we should support it, get behind it, encourage something new and something that's going to help refresh our approach for the future. And if it is successful, certainly perhaps into the future there may be some opportunity to expand it wider than just the Chamber of Commerce. But I'd urge councillors to think about what we've done in the past and give us an opportunity to do something new and fresh, and to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Speaker against. Councillor Steele.
Thank you. Okay, so we want something new, but only including one. And the Business Chamber of Commerce, I respect them. I think they should be on it if they want to, but we're not having it open enough for everybody else. So if we as a council are open to providing an opportunity for community leaders to contribute to the development of our council policy, this idea should be fully canvassed to maximise the benefits to council and ensure a cross-section of the community is heard, not just one section. Rather than simply create a position on the Policy Review Committee for a representative from the Chamber, council should review the range of community expertise that could be harnessed to improve the development of our council policies. By creating a position solely for the Chamber, members of that organisation will be afforded a voice within council decision-making that will be denied to all other electors. It is difficult to justify providing this opportunity to a paid-up member of one association while denying it to all others in our community. So I'm asking you to please vote against 2 and 3 and support my recommendation of having a framework and a policy reference group to include people from our sporting section, our building section, our community services, not just the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Speaker 4. Councillor Brown to close.
I'm fine.
You good? I'll put, first of all, committee recommendation 1A to E, and each of these need an absolute majority. All in favour of 1A to E, please indicate. That's unanimous, I think. Clause 2. All those in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Those against?
I put my hand down, Mr Mayor, when I was reading, so I did not vote for that.
I've declared the count as unanimous. That's number 1.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
For the second one.
The second one, it's 7, 6, 4. That's carried.
Put our hands up and like to record against.
Yeah, Councillor Steele, McCleary, Steck, McGuinness, Kelly and Smith record their names against. And item 3, please indicate your support or otherwise. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Those against is Councillor Smith, Kelly, McGuinness, Steck, McCleary and Steele. Thank you. We move on to 10.1.5, I think is the next one. Someone move the committee recommendation. Thank you, Councillor.
No, Mr Mayor, I'd like to defer it. I move to defer it, please.
You move to defer
Yes,
for...
please. Yes, deferred until to the round after the next policy committee meeting.
For the reason?
Yes, please. Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think in context of the gallery and where we're going with our art collection and the art world in Bunbury, we need to get this absolutely right. And to do this, we need to have a sense of ownership of this particular policy. I've had a few conversations about this, and it's important that this policy be run past the artists and collectors and the interested parties so that they're totally comfortable with it, so that they can have a sense of ownership of it. So, Mr Mayor, I'm asking the indulgence also of the Policy Committee that if there be a forum raised of the artists, collectors and interested parties prior to the next committee meeting, they can run a measurement over it, and if they're happy with it, then there's a sense of ownership when it comes back as a policy of this council.
Yeah, Councillor Kelly, I'll just clarify with you. I noticed in the report that, well, in the subsequent information we received during the week, there were some artists involved. Do you, I just want to help the officers if this gets up, how broad, and is it Bunbury, is it the whole southwest or?
Well, Mr Mayor, yeah, southwest, we do boast that we're the capital of the southwest in art, and I think that the advertisement for that could be quite wide spread. Perhaps one of those surveys on the internet, Survey Monkey, could help, could assist to prevent, or, you know, to allow people to put that input in. Thank you.
Just trying to assist the staff, and you're seconding that, Councillor Steele. All those in favour, deferring it for that period. Have you got all that, Jamie? And you know the reasons given? Okay, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. (10.1.9). We have committee recommendation and executive recommendation. Councillor Steele, which one are you moving? Which one are you moving, Councillor Steele? Executive recommendation. Did you wish to speak to it? Did you wish to speak, Councillor Steele? Is there any debate here? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move to 10.2.2. Mr. Bischoff, welcome. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Your Worship and Councillors, I'm not really happy with the executive recommendation, part 2, although I'm not quite sure what that will entail. But the motions listed under 10.2.2 is not the first motion I've put to an AGM in relation to the issue of invasive weeds. About 10 years ago, I proposed a war on weeds, which led to nothing. My motion this year have attracted a more detailed response, but will they change anything? Commenting on the motion B, bottom page 38, the fourth paragraph of the officer's comments suggests that the funds provided to the environmental team are recurrent allocations. That would suggest that the amount is automatic and is not based on estimates, as approximately $82,000 of the recurrent budget is set aside for weed management each year. There would be no need to present estimates of funding required for weed management because it's not a condition for the allocation. I think the preparation of a realistic budget would make sure that the weed situation is looked at and assessed more realistically, and that therefore the sad reality of the present weed problems becomes clearer. The situation is dire. There's no doubt in my mind that even the status quo of the present condition of the bushland cannot be maintained with present resources. Now a closer look at motion A and the officer comments. The first paragraph of the officer's comment states that the preparation of realistic estimates would be a significant undertaking and even inappropriate. No doubt it would be a significant undertaking, but are there valid excuses for not even try and making a start? Among the reasons given is the size of the bushland reserves. The size of the bushland should not be regarded as a negative. It's exactly the size of the bushland reserves that protects them and makes them relatively sustainable and able to resist to be overrun by weeds. It's only because the reserves are large that significant areas of bushland are still in a reasonable condition. I have great admiration for what the environmental team is achieving, as set out further in the comments. But I can't respond to everything being said below, but what is said at the bottom of the page is very significant. It's about priorities. It's of course important to set priorities. They have been set according to established methodologies. The question is, how much does this selection reflect the weed problems in Bunbury? A few times I have warned about a new untreated infestation and was informed that such and such was not a priority. Many of the badly invasive species that affect the local bushland are not listed as priorities and are therefore allowed to proliferate until they become a fire hazard, like for instance a fumitory, or they colour the whole bushland pink like Pretty Betsy. In those cases they become a priority. These invasive plants should have been controlled as soon as they appeared and have been reported. I don't envy the environmental team when they have to decide on what weeds or locations to prioritise and which to ignore. In reality, priorities can also change very quickly. Realistic estimates. The officer is right. Providing estimates on all Bunbury bushland would be a significant undertaking. Even providing realistic estimates for only the bushland under council control, as suggested in the motion, would be a significant undertaking. It would be difficult, I admit, but can we afford to do without it?
Mr. Bischoff, would you just summarise now? You've run out of time.
I've got another half a page.
Just quickly.
I don't think that control can be effective and lead to a protective outcome without assessments and estimates. Control operations are only worth it if they are effective. Therefore, the monitoring of the results is an indispensable part of weed control. For lack of resources in that in the past tended to be patchy. The same applies for necessary follow-up work. The officer's comments includes a reference to the fact that some weeds, grasses, have become so widely spread that they are no longer even considered for treatment. That shows that we have not done enough when there was time to do it. Such a conclusion threatens to become more and more common. Weed control is not a nuclear science, but needs to be treated as a natural phenomenon that also deserves a scientific approach. At the moment, it seems that hit and miss occurs more often than we can afford. Council should encourage environmental staff to try to come up with realistic estimates, even though they may not like to see the results.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bischoff. Someone prepared to move the executive recommendation?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move it, and I'd like to foreshadow an amendment to Part 2.
Thank you. Seconder? Is there a seconder to this? It's Councillor Smith. Councillor Kelly?
Mr. Mayor, just for the minutes, Secretary, and just to perhaps get this organised in orderly fashion, Part 2, after budget process, to include the words, and this is just at your discretion, based on, and then we go down to the elector's motion into Part B, the last part of it, based on estimates such as the sustainability and environmental planning team may present. So we've taken part of the elector's motion and tacked it on to the bottom of Part 2, Mr. Mayor, if that's...
I'm relaxed with that. Councillor Kelly, do you wish to speak to it?
If I can get a seconder to agree on that bit, I think that's appropriate, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, the seconder agrees.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Councillors, Mr. Bischoff has been a long-standing
You
supporter...
can take a seat, Mr. Bischoff. Thank you.
That's him there. Mr. Bischoff has been a long-standing supporter of bushland in Bunbury, indeed arguably and probably the instigator of the Ocean to Preston Regional Park, with his energy over the last 3 decades, has pursued this with all the fervour that he has gathered up and shown in this council on many occasions at many different annual general meetings as well. He is on the mark about weed control. It's no strange thing for anybody involved in natural resource management throughout the southwest that weeds are one of the major issues that we face in our bushland and our native vegetation. We've really got to get a grasp on it. We've got one of the greatest cross-sections of native vegetation on the Swan Coastal Plain, indeed the unique one. It's the only east-west link from ocean to a river such as the Preston that exists on the Swan Coastal Plain. So it's not just an airy-fairy thing that says, well, somebody else might have something similar. We have. So there's no doubt whatsoever that we have to get a hold on what we're doing with it and the management of it. Unfortunately, we've been dawdling, or government has been dawdling, state government has been dawdling with getting the whole thing gazetted and getting that management plan and resources in to look after it. So it's come to the good folk of Bunbury, this city council, to do something, and to do something until such time as state government steps up to the plate. I think that the advice of the Sustainability and Environmental Planning team, in their wisdom, coming back to the budget process for 2018-19 and providing us with some sort of realistic estimate, or what they consider their expertise says about weed control, is an admirable thing. We need to do it. It's overdue. I think, if we had our way again, we would have started 20 years ago, perhaps 30 years ago. But it's there. Mr. Bischoff has been a champion for it, and I hear what he says, and I think with the number 1 and 2, with the addition of it, based on some of that good information, then we can move forward to make sure that we look after that legacy that is the native bushland in Bunbury. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Kelly's comments. I also want to make a couple of comments on my own. I'd like to see, not consider an allocation of resources, but to commit some resources, because it is a problem. If you talk to farmers around here, they tear their hair out of cotton bush which is spreading all over the place. Some of you may know I'm a pretty keen gardener, and I was out in my garden yesterday and I noticed yet another new weed in my lawn that I'd never seen before. So weeds spread and they are a problem and we need to do something about it. Thank you.
Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. It's carried unanimously, thank you. We move to 10.2.3. Mr. Wren, are you in the audience? Welcome. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Brennan and councillors. My name's David Wren. I'm the chairman of the Bunnery Basketball Association. And due to recent lobbying efforts by the BBA, Marina Quain, we've been able to raise the awareness of the need for court expansion or expansion of the facilities at the Southwest Sports Centre. And these, which has resulted in having a motion passed at the council. We've also had 2 successful meetings with the council executive over the last month. It's important to recognise that there is a need for multi-use court expansion, and the BBA had been a proponent of the multi-use concept in the past, and we continue to support that model going forward. And we fully support. I've read the briefing notes, and we fully support the process going forward in terms of getting the Southwest Sports Centre into the broader strategic plan, which was explained to us by the Executive Council last week, and also just to ensure that as part of that process that there's a multi-user group that represents the Southwest Sports Centre is engaged as part of that process going forward. It's very important, and we feel that it's very important that multi-use concept is a solution going forward, and it's a solution for any considerations for funding, and we would like to be part of that process. So we fully support tonight's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm prepared to move the executive recommendation. Councillor Steck.
No, sorry, sir, but 2 minutes before the meeting I did write out a consideration for further points into this motion, sir.
So I'm prepared
the minute secretary has them, so I'm going to have that
I'll
as a pro forma.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Is there a move of the executive recommendation? You can move amendments. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Seconded, Councillor Cook. Councillor Steck, you had an amendment.
Yes, sir. The minute secretary has them. They're on the board now. There is a couple of errors
what I'll do,
sir.
Councillor Steck, defeat this and add that in as an alternative. So, Councillor Hayward, you wish to speak to the recommendation? We're not dealing with that at the moment. We're dealing with that. 1, 2, 3.
Sure, thank you. Obviously, we do need to move forward. The condition of our sporting facilities across our city are really in a very difficult way. And we have many young people that want to get involved in sport, and there's nothing more important, in my view, than for us to be able to facilitate those kids being able to have a go and be able to play sport in their local community. And we have a great facility at the Southwest Sports Centre, but we do need to look at what the solution is. So we do need to get cracking on doing this, and obviously the community's made it very clear that they're keen to engage with us to get that done. So I would urge that you would support the motion. I think, I think that's probably it. Thank you.
Councillor Cook. Speaker against. Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. I just believe that after 12 years in this place, if the community is not on an advisory board, they will be left behind. They do not have the capacity to enter into debate, to recommendations to this council. And I just urge you to err on the side of caution, because Hay Park does need consideration for further expansion and for monies to be committed. And as council, it is our role to facilitate that. And the only way forward is through an advisory committee.
Speaker for. Councillor Hayward to close. I'll put it all in favour. Please indicate. Those against? That's lost. Councillor Steck, do you wish to move that?
Yes, please, sir.
You're moving just the highlighted bits?
Yes, sir.
You're not noting?
No, just take them to 1 and 2. So leave out 3 and just go 1, 2 and 3 becomes 3 and then 4. Yeah, notes.
Number 1 is notes the elector's motion. Number
Just take
2,
out number
agree
1.
with the provision deleted. 3, in response, and that's your words, and 4 is your words.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So take
so
out 1, so 2 becomes 1, 3 becomes 2 and 4 becomes 3.
So we're all clear, councillors? You know what you... Yeah. I think you wanted to have that we note the... go back up the top there, Jamie, please. I think you wanted to note the elector's motion. You wanted that in there?
Well, sir, also number 3 should also be that when the CEO compiles the terms of reference and the membership of the committee to be back before council for consideration. Yes.
So you're happy with that, Councillor Steck? 1, 2, 3, 4?
4 needs to indicate that the report will come back for council for consideration.
Yeah, it's in 3.
To formally put the committee together.
It's in 3, I think. Did you want to have? Do you want council to determine the terms of reference and membership of the committee?
Yes, I would, from a report that the CEO advises
Right.
council to, because that is the normal process that
report
council always
Back
does.
to council. Okay. So is there a seconder to that? Councillor Howard, just a question to the CEO. Yep, just a question to you. What is the current process that our staff use to find out what the users of the Hay Park facility want?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, at this stage we have a project manager looking at a recreation and sport master plan, and then there's a subset of that work which is particularly focused around Hay Park, and as we had in the original recommendation, there was a specific request to make sure that there was all the relevant sporting clubs and users of Hay Park would be involved in that discussion. Following on from a meeting earlier today, hockey has expressed their desire to be involved in that discussion for their future plans as well. So we felt that we had that covered under the recommendation, where there would have been satisfactory engagement and consultation with all users of Hay Park, and especially users of the South West Sports Centre.
Thank you. Councillor Steck. Councillor Steck, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, please, sir. I've just identified another a grammatical error, and that is in 3, in response. It should be in response to the electors' meeting motion. Then it will read properly. The City of Bunbury undertakes to develop there, so that starts to work. Look, internal process of engaging with stakeholders always is the preferred option, but it never always tends to work. And, we've had several examples of that over the last 4 years. And, separate committees were made up. And if you think about it, the trotting track and the rezoning of all of that is a perfect example for the community stakeholder and considerations. This will be exactly the same. And we need to jump on it straight away. And this has been a problem that we've known about for several years, and we just haven't really committed a strategy and funding towards it. I've asked previously for an entire sports master plan, and I know that our team is working on that, and we do need to consider all the state of all of our sporting facilities, that's true. But this particular committee will only be dealing, sir, with the South West Sports Centre and its users. And we really do need to identify with community stakeholders which are using the facility, are rewarding their participants of their sport by growing their sports, We should be proud of the efforts that these sporting community groups have delivered for the city and for their families. I congratulate them for getting it to this point, and I would like to seriously continue that drive to make it a premier sports venue. And I think that everyone in this room wants to do that. So I urge you to vote for the motion.
Councillor Hayward.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I seconded this one because we've missed out on the opportunity to support the first one, and I think it's too important to let go. This is obviously a different method of organising moving forward, but at the end of the day, I believe we need to move forward, so I urge all councillors to support it. Thank you.
Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously, thank you. You keep going, Jamie. So I'm prepared to move. We go behind closed doors. Councillor Cook, Councillor McGuinness, all in favour. Councillors, all in favour of that? Councillors, can I just have your attention? All in favour that we move behind closed doors, please indicate. That's carried unanimously, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now dealing with a confidential item.